Hi, I'm John. Welcome back to Learning to Ski or Snowboard. The topic for this section, what? No, it's not a witch. It's a Swiss mountain spirit. It chases away witches, but I will move it to avoid distracting you. So, our topic for this section is safety. The most important piece of safety equipment you have is always with you, and it's between your ears. Yes, it is your brain. Your attitude and awareness about safety is more important than any piece of safety equipment or any safety procedure. As with many things in life, there is a continuum of attitudes about safety. The one extreme are people who would really love to stay locked in their room all day worrying about airborne dust. The other extreme are people who are totally fearless and often die young in some colorful and sometimes comical way. Neither of those groups will be watching this video. The first group would never ever consider getting out on the slopes and taking a risk. The latter group would never want to waste the time of watching this video or preparing in any way when they can just strap on some skis and jump off the nearest cliff. To an extent, I'm preaching to the choir, but here is my sermon anyway.
So before I get into the common injuries involved in skiing and snowboarding, I wanted to go over how dangerous skiing and snowboarding really are, since I don't want to frighten you away from ever trying. On average, 2 out of every 1,000 people spending a day on the slopes are going to need medical attention. You can verify this for yourself by taking a peek in the first aid station in any ski resort. There will be thousands and thousands of people at the ski resort. In the first aid station, there might be a handful of people, there might be no one. On average, you are more likely to die from running than from skiing or snowboarding. On average, each year in the U.S., 40 people die on the slopes and 700 die falling down stairs. However, of course, no one is average. Some people are more likely to be injured than others, and everyone knows who they are. Common injuries for skiers. Skis, of course, run front to back, so falls are typically to the side. When you fall to the side, your upper body is often in pretty good shape, right? Your shoulder, which is going to be padded with your coat, falls on soft snow. You might injure your shoulder a little bit, but typically not too bad. Your legs, however, are completely independent and can get twisted pretty well by the skis. So there are lots of knee and leg injuries. In particular, your bindings must work. So if we look at the bindings on a ski boot, the front and back have a spring adjustment. So if too much force is exerted on them, particularly sideways, they'll release and the ski will come off. When you rent skis, they will ask you what kind of skier you are. And then based on a complicated formula of your height and weight and age and what type of skier you are, they adjust the spring. If you are a beginner, they will often adjust the spring so that if you just look at it sideways, your ski pops off. You can bring it back to the rental place and have them adjust it a little bit tighter if you're having problems with that. But it's far better that the ski just pops off too easily than that the ski does not release. I have some friends where the binding did not release, and 6 months after surgery, they're almost back to normal. Another thing that can happen with skiers is broken arms. When they fall to the side, they reach out and lock their elbow, and they get a broken arm as a result. Don't lock your elbow. If you know anything about judo or jiu-jitsu or aikido, you're supposed to slap the ground when you fall. That's what you should be doing. There are some concussions and neck injuries. Helmets certainly help with concussions. I know people who are only alive today because they had a helmet on. And the bad one is collision with trees. Skiers tend to rule the trees. There are a few snowboarders who go in there, but mostly skiers, and trees can do a lot of damage. Common injuries for snowboarders are the spine and neck. Snowboarders have about 4 times the rate of injuries for spine and neck. Snowboard runs side to side, so most falls on a snowboard are forwards or backwards. Backwards can definitely mess up your neck all the way down to your tailbone. There are also broken wrists when you fall forward and try to catch yourself. Face plants, when you hit forward very hard, of course you can get a broken nose or have teeth knocked out. Some leg injuries, this surprises many people. Snowboarders have only about half the rate of leg injuries of skiers. You would think because your legs are in a fixed position that they're very vulnerable, but actually they're in a much better position than independent legs being twisted around by skis. If you are injured, the safety patrol will come get you. They typically wear red with a white cross on the back. If you don't see any safety patrol people, you might want to go looking for them. You can talk to someone associated with the resort. In particular, the people who give lessons can usually contact the safety patrol people. You do not want to talk to some random person. Hey, a friend of mine who was injured way up on the slopes, and you should go get them. If this person works for a restaurant or something, they'll probably just ignore you. You think you've gotten help and you really haven't. Another important thing is that if someone is injured, you need to know where you are. At least what is the name of the slope. In particular, if you leave them, you must know what the name of the slope is and preferably where on the slope. If you go down and say, oh, my friend needs help. Where is he? Oh, well, there were some trees and I can't remember. That's not going to help him at all. Anyway, the safety patrol will pick you up, take you down on a sled. I've done this once. Once is enough. It was interesting, but don't need to do it again. And you go down to the first aid station. Safety equipment. Number one is the helmet. This is being required at more and more places. Some resorts now require all children in their lessons to have a helmet. And actually, my ski club is considering requiring all adults on a ski trip to have a helmet. Snowboarders can get some additional protection. As I mentioned, when you fall forward, a broken wrist is a definite possibility. So they make wrist protection, often called wrist guards. There are some variations here. Some go on the palm of the hand, some go on the back of the hand. Some are separate, so they go inside your glove, which means you would need an extra large glove in order to use them. Some are built into the glove. Another type of protection snowboarders use is back protection. There's a variety there. If you're on a piece of terrain equipment and then fall backwards, the metal edge of a rail or box could do a lot of damage to your spine. So this could prevent you from being permanently injured. You want to minimize the time you are under a chairlift because things fall from chairlifts. If you use the chairlift on the beginner's area, you will often see poles, often in short children's sizes that have fallen from the lifts. You really don't want a ski pole dropped on you from 30 feet up. Occasionally you'll see a ski also. Someone banged their skis together maybe to get the snow off up on the lift and one of them came off. So you do not want to ski or snowboard directly under a lift for any significant distance. You don't want to stop under a lift. You can cross under a lift. That's certainly fine. And even if I'm feeling really paranoid, try to make sure I'm between chairs or going under a chair with all snowboarders because snowboarders rarely drop anything. It's very, very rare that somebody actually drops a snowboard on a lift. If you are on the lift, obviously you want to hang on to your poles. Never bang your skis together if one of them comes off. Most importantly, you could seriously injure someone below. It also means you now have to get off a moving ski lift on only one ski. Not something you want to attempt as a beginner. Also, you want to get away from the lift as soon as you're off, right? If you can imagine being on what we Americans call an escalator, a moving stairway, you get up to the top and then you just stop, you're going to create a big mess. So as soon as you're off, go away from it. Also on surface lifts, lifts where your ski or snowboard remain in contact with the snow, those are often used, as we'll get into, on beginner slopes, first-time beginner slopes. If you fall off in the middle, you don't quite make it to the top, don't sit around and feel sorry for yourself. The first thing you need to do is get out of the way of the person behind you. Then you can feel sorry for yourself. The code, skiers and snowboarders code. Number one, there are 7 of these items. Number 1, always stay in control and be able to stop or avoid other people or objects. If you're going so fast that you can't stop, or you're on a slope where you're just not a good enough skier or a snowboarder to stop, you have a serious problem. People ahead of you have the right of way. It is your responsibility to avoid them. Often the slower skiers and snowboarders stick towards the middle of the run, and the faster ones use the outside. Some of the really fast ones use the extreme edge of the slope. Occasionally you will see a really incompetent instructor who will have his class go from the one extreme of the slope over to the other extreme edge of the slope, thus forcing the faster skiers and snowboarders behind him to go through the middle of his class. If you have an instructor like that, get a different instructor. Another thing to be aware of is snowboarders have visibility mostly to one side. So if you can envision the photographer here being at the one edge of the slope, you see the snowboarder is facing the photographer at the edge of the slope. It's very difficult for him to see something towards the other edge of the slope. So if he's turning, he's already over at the edge of the slope. He's going to be turning towards the middle. If you were skiing or snowboarding basically beside him, he could turn right into you, and it's not that he's careless, he just can't see you. He does not have eyes in the back of his head. Skiers and snowboarders code number 3. You must not stop where you obstruct a trail or are not visible from above. So when you stop, don't stop in the middle of the trail, stop over on the edge, and don't stop just over a hill where people above you can't see you. Whenever starting downhill or merging into a trail, look uphill and yield to others. I have a friend who had to have a piece of her pelvis removed to patch her femur because some idiot pulled out right in front of her. Always use devices to help prevent runaway equipment. What does that mean? Well, skis have something right here. These are called brakes. So if there's no boot in the binding, these stick down into the snow. You can put the skis down and they don't move. Snowboards, on the other hand, do not have brakes. So if you put a snowboard down on the snow and the snow is not perfectly flat, the snowboard is going to take off. So you can never put a snowboard down like this. If you're just going to put a snowboard down and leave it, you have to turn it upside down, always upside down. Some snowboarders also use a leash, which looks sort of like a very short dog's leash, so that if they're on a hill and somehow both of their boots came out, let's say they were pushing up a hill to get to a lift and somehow the uphill boot came out, the leash prevents the board from getting away from them. Those are actually mandatory at some resorts. You don't really need them very often, but when you do, they could save somebody else's life. Observe all posted signs and warnings. Keep off closed trails and out of closed areas. No, they did not put up the closed sign just to tick you off. They want to spoil your fun. No, they hate hauling people off to the hospital. That's why the signs are there. And finally, prior to using any lift, you must have the knowledge and ability to load, ride, and unload safely. We will be covering lifts in another couple lectures. So, I'll see you on the slopes.